Welcome to Timber&Terra. I am Glenn, and this is an area that I've worked on two videos of the last several. This is an area where I brought in about 40 cubic yards of larger rocks. They're mostly hidden now. See some of them spilling out there. There's a bunch down there just in front of the excavator, and then topped it off with about 10 of my dump trailer loads of clay. And what I had talked about in those videos I have to address now, which is this puddle here, which is not draining on its own, and it's really just sort of keeping a puddle on this road, so it doesn't really have a chance to dry out. I can't do much with it as far as shaping it until I get rid of this water. So that's what I'm going to do. I got the excavator back in here. I'm going to drain this over to the left hand side here, but I don't have a lot of depth to work with, so I'm going to have to be creative in how I drain it. So this will be a little bit different than just a pipe to drain this out, so stay tuned and see what we do. So there really wasn't a whole lot of volume here to drain, but it just kept the road wet, so it limited my ability to do much with it. Because this clay will really harden up very nicely if it's allowed to dry out. And then once it does dry out and pack and settle, then any rain or moisture will just run off. But if it's at the water table and it's constantly soaked with water, that's a little bit of a different story. So actually I had quite a bit more depth here than I thought I did. But I'm still gonna continue with the plan that I have to allow this to drain. So I'm gonna let this set. It's supposed to be a really nice stretch of good weather. Let this set for a few days to dry out, and then we'll come back and do my treatment. So this is the area where there used to be a rock wall. I took out a bunch of rocks for some ditching. I'm going to use these for that culvert, the ones that I can handle by hand. A lot of these really are just machine rocks that I can't handle by hand. One of the windstorms we had in the last couple weeks knocked over some of these trees where I had sort of weakened the roots or taken the rocks off that were sort of holding these trees down to the ground, so to speak. And I lost two sizable ones. Looks like there was some collateral damage further in there. So there you have it, the makings of what one viewer commented, suggested I do this, which he called, I think, like a rock burrito. Mud. It's been almost a week since I opened this up. I mean, that's dried out nicely, but the road is still wet. It's going to take a lot of dry weather to evaporate that, since the clay doesn't allow it to drain out. It is a testament to the quality of clay we have here. If anyone wants to build a dam or a pond. So I think I need maybe just a bit more rock. Probably not another heaping bucket like I had before, but just a bit more to finish this off, and then we'll wrap it up. Well, there it is. It's all wrapped up. Yeah, I think the viewer's name is Jeff. That sort of gave me the name of Rock Burrito. Interesting. So thanks for that. The inlet is clear enough. You know, water can make its way through the voids in the rocks. On the outlet side, I might have to. I didn't bring a shovel with me. But at least that clump of clay I'll take out. I'm sure the water, you can see it here, it is leaking out right there, so it's working. But yeah, I'll clear this out to make sure that there's no more obstruction than need be. Boy, it is sloppy. I really didn't expect it to be quite that sloppy. Oh gosh. This right here, you know, where the clay has had a chance to dry or was never really wet, it's nice and firm. But there where the tractor is, where that is not at all. So before we wrap this up, this area of my property, I'll show you a map of my woods roads and where we are in it. This is the map of my property with the woods here behind the house. So where we're working right now is actually just this tiny little stretch of road right there. And it just has remained very problematic this summer. It's very wet, which is interesting because this is actually relatively high ground. So as far as the woods roads that have given me the most problem or the wettest is really here and along here. When I started this journey to try to fix a spot, it was really just a spot up here. But when I started coming this way, I realized how bad that was as far as how soupy it was. So I've started here and haven't really left that yet. The rest of these woods roads they have their wet spots, but they're just that. They're just a spot that's wet, but most of the road is fairly passable most of the time. As far as where I get the rocks from, it's this rock wall between the property line and this road here that I have removed most of. They still have a bit of large rocks left. I'll reference sort of a natural rock culvert here towards the end of the video here in a bit. And that is right here. This up here is sort of a marshy area, and it's almost always draining underneath the road and eventually into the little pond here where the ford is that I cross. So that rock culvert is right here. It's always been there. I just laid fabric on top of the road and material for the road base, and it's constantly running water underneath it through the rocks ever since. But this whole side is real shallow bedrock, and is just, I'm guessing, just no place for the water to drain. It just has clay and what little bit of topsoil might be there on top of it. So this is another area. It's dried out a little bit, but if I drove over it with the tractor, it just becomes sloppy like that up there. Parts of that road are good, parts of it are not good, and this is where my ordeal with this part of my property started. Was up there where I got the tractor stuck with the trailer, had to pull it out with a dozer. This is that area of the road where this natural rock culvert is. The water level is not that high right now, which is sort of interesting because I talk about how wet it is, but there's not a lot of surface water. It's just the ground is soaking wet. This is the inlet side, and you really can't see anything. It is flowing, but the water is actually below the surface, below the rocks. On the outlet side, it may not be obvious where the water is coming from, but it does surface enough where you can see the flow. So this is the flow right there, and it's just coming, bubbling up, going through the rocks. Right there, just a bunch of rocks. And it's worked well. It does have a very limited capacity, so if we get a heavy rainstorm, then this inlet will rise up above the rocks, and it could rise up, and it does on a real heavy rainstorm, above the level of the road and wash over. But I excavated this little trench here as sort of an overflow, so when the water does get a little bit heavier, or the rain gets heavier, it'll come in through there and then go through this 15-inch culvert and down the ditch to that ford and pond. So that little section of road is not nearly complete. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it this year. This is getting into September, where things is just not looking good for a stretch of dry weather to dry things out enough. It could be that I just let it freeze up in the spring. Next summer it will firm up if I do have to just let it go over the winter. But hopefully it'll dry up enough where I can do something, because that's, you know, limits my access to that sort of loop of the road that you saw on the map. So thanks for watching for this one. Stay tuned for hopefully an improvement to that section of road and more woods roads. Thanks.